Hello, welcome back to another video presented by Acuity PPM, where today we're going to answer the question, what is a PMO? And furthermore, what's the difference between a PMO and an EPMO? But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to our channel because we put out great content that you simply don't want to miss. And with that, let's jump in. And in order to understand the difference between a PMO and an EPMO, we need to know what a PMO is. And because we manage projects, programs, and portfolios, the P in PMO really matters because we can have a project management office or a program management office and even a portfolio management office. So let's consider these three types of PMO. The most common is the project management office. It can have two primary functions. The most common function is around project delivery, meaning that you have a team of project managers. Project management has been centralized, and this team of project managers is responsible for the planning and execution of projects. This is the most common function of the project management office. Another type, though, of a project management office is one that's not directly involved with execution, but rather they provide tools and training, consulting support, processes to help the project management discipline within an organization or across a company. The next type is the program management office. It's much less common. It's really designed for organizations that are program focused. Perhaps they have projects managed at a lower level. The program management office is focused on very specific programs within that organization, and they provide the support and the team to manage programs. Again, less common, and correspondingly, you could have a type of program management office that provides the tools, the templates, the processes, the trainings necessary to deliver programs. One example is at the Boeing company. They have a program management office that teaches program management across the company. And then the third type of PMO is a portfolio management office. And this type of PMO is where the portfolio management function and capabilities and responsibility reside separate from a project management office. It's quite common for a project management office to also assume portfolio management responsibilities. But in cases where the two are separated, you may have a different team that's responsible for portfolio management, and this could be considered a portfolio management office. We're going to take a look at the primary capabilities of both a project and program management office as well as a portfolio management office. And as was mentioned, the primary capability for a project and program management office is delivery. It's the successful execution and completion of projects and programs. And very commonly, you've got a team of project managers of different skill sets and abilities. You could have senior project managers, junior project managers, project coordinators, etc., and program managers, of course, that are responsible for the planning and execution of projects and programs. Along with that, a typical PMO, even when they do delivery, they should also have some level of process and tool standardization. How do we make project and program management consistent? How do we do it on a repeatable level so that everyone in the organization understands or better understands project and program management? So there may be specific methodologies. There may be specific ways of planning projects, of scheduling projects, of handling finances, resource management, any number of key areas of project and program management. Status reporting could be another example. These should be standardized by the PMO. You'd also have tool standardization, and this could be common tools such as charters and risk and issue logs, all the way to project management software and even portfolio management software. Ideally, this should all be standardized by the PMO. And then you have the matter of training and development. A good PMO will help develop its team to be better project and program managers. So there's an element of training that goes on in support and development, coaching, etc. This is one of the benefits that we'll touch on later with having a PMO. There's the matter of reporting. By centralizing your PMO, it is easier to report out on the performance of the projects and programs in that PMO. There may be different individuals responsible for the reporting aspect, along with communications. So communication for a PMO, very important to communicate out to the organization how the projects are performing, along with how do we manage projects. There's different aspects of communication. Check out our video on portfolio communication, which gets into this in great detail. Then we have the matter of oversight. So with a project management or even program management office, you're going to have very likely a manager or director level that has oversight for the PMO, and they then can report back to or communicate with senior leadership. But there's oversight for the both the projects that are being managed as well as the people managing those projects. On the portfolio management side, it should be noted that it's very common for even a project management office to assume portfolio management responsibilities. So in this case, you may have some different individuals that are responsible for the portfolio management side. They work alongside the project and program managers, or you could have a dedicated team for portfolio management. And so these are some of the key capabilities for a portfolio management office. First one being intake. How do we ensure that we are doing the right projects? And we can use the simple comparison that project management is about doing the work right. Portfolio management is about doing the right work. And to facilitate that, we definitely need to have a good intake process. This is your front door into the portfolio. And with many of these capabilities, we have a great video and article on our website that you can take a look at. Do take a look at the intake video to learn more about setting up an intake process. It's a very critical capability that most organizations don't do a good job of. Next is resource management. And at the portfolio level, the goal here is to ensure that the organization has the right resources in place to successfully execute the projects they've signed up for. It's by far the hardest part of project and portfolio management. It takes a lot of support. You need the right people and you need the right tools to collect the resource data, aggregate it, analyze it, report it back to senior leadership in support of better decision making. Again, are we doing the right work? And can we take on this work at this time? Project monitoring is another function, particularly from the standpoint of how projects are progressing and aggregating that at the portfolio level to understand overall portfolio health, not just individual project health, and communicating that back to the governance team. Optimization is an aspect of more advanced portfolio management to make sure we can maximize the value delivery of our portfolio. Along with that is the fact of value management. How do we measure the value of our projects and programs? How do we aggregate that at the portfolio level? How do we track that throughout the project lifecycle? This should result in benefit realization, and we've got a great video on portfolio value management and benefit realization that you should take a look at. And then finally, prioritization is a key capability, making sure that we're focused on the most important work. So these are the critical capabilities for a portfolio management office. We covered the different roles of project management, program management, and portfolio management in our video on what is a portfolio manager. But we're going to review this here because these roles are very common in the context of a PMO. And the first are the project-related roles. Of course, most commonly as the project manager, you'd have senior PMs, junior PMs. You'd have project coordinators that may take on easier or shorter projects. They're learning to develop project management skill set so that they can grow into a dedicated project manager or senior project manager. You may have project administrators. They support running a PMO, facilitating the meetings, could be the various types of communication, status reporting, etc. So these are common roles at the project level. Program roles would include a program manager, program administrator, again in support of both program execution as well as the logistics of managing an individual program that a program administrator could support, or even helping to run the program management office. At the portfolio level, we have a portfolio manager. They would be a senior individual, maybe or may not be in a management role, but they've got deep expertise on portfolio management. They help guide process development, analysis, and work with the leadership team to ensure that the right projects are being approved. Portfolio analyst is going to do more work analyzing the data, working with the project managers to get the right data in support of that portfolio analysis that is critical for making better decisions. And the portfolio administrator could be there as a junior level person, possibly doing some of the reporting, some of the data collection, maybe even data entry. So different roles to support a PMO, different types of PMOs, the project management office, a program management office, and a portfolio management office. So let's talk about the benefits of a PMO. Why would we do this? And the number one reason why we would have a PMO in the first place is to have more successful project delivery. We want to increase or improve our success rate for project management. And in organizations that don't have a PMO, their project managers tend to be decentralized, and the term is they get farmed out to different parts of the company or different departments. They can still be successful, but the goal of having a centralized PMO is to facilitate more successful project and program delivery. And part of the way we do that is by having a consistent delivery approach. When you have a PMO, you can standardize the processes to make them more streamlined, help communicate out to the organization so everybody understands how projects are managed. We have a consistent delivery approach. And then we have increased coordination across projects. So there can be cases of project dependencies. There could be risks or issues that affect more than one project. Having a PMO with a PMO director enables better coordination across projects. It could be shared resources. It could be trade-offs that need to be made. And this can be better coordinated with a centralized PMO approach. We talked briefly about portfolio management. A good PMO, a good project management office, will incorporate portfolio management. Can't stress this enough. This will add tremendous value when it is done well. And we'll talk about more about why that's important for demonstrating the value of a PMO. We believe there will be better utilization of project managers. When the project managers are decentralized, there is the potential that they may not get assigned to the right projects or may not have the right skill set and bandwidth. But when we have a larger pool of project managers, we can better assign the right people to the right work at the right time, better utilization, better management of project manager capacity. Not to mention better support. This is where a PMO director can help coach and mentor and develop the people on his or her team. There's the adequate support from the leadership team through that program or PMO director to ensure that the project managers are well supported, well understood, there's the proper communication, etc., in support of project management. And then finally, enhanced organizational communication. This is where, by having that centralized PMO, We can better communicate what's happening across all of our projects because we have centralized visibility. We can more easily collect the right data to create the right reports and charts to communicate out to the whole organization and especially senior leadership. So this is a summary of some of the key benefits of a PMO. And at the same time, there are challenges faced by PMOs. This could be the most important section of this entire video because we want to help you avoid some of the pitfalls that other organizations have faced when setting up a PMO. And probably the number one, and you'll hear this again and again throughout these 5 challenges, is the matter of value. And the first point is value delivery. Are we delivering, is the PMO delivering real value to the organization? As opposed to, are we focused on traditional project metrics? Are we more concerned about, are we on time, on budget, on scope, as opposed to, are we speaking the language of the business? Are we understanding what is going to deliver value both internally and externally? And portfolio management as a discipline inherently is focused on maximizing value delivery through projects and programs, which is why it's so important to incorporate portfolio management even into a project management office. Value delivery is one of the most critical components of setting up any type of PMO. And in relation to that, we have PMO justification. In other words, are we communicating the importance of the PMO? Sadly, PMOs get started, and it's been measured across a number of industries and companies that there's commonly a life cycle for a PMO. They get initiated, built up, and then at some point they may be disbanded. Now, in some cases, or even a lot of cases, those PMOs get disbanded because they're not demonstrating their value. And this is why the value proposition is so important for managing PMOs. We want to be sure that we communicate the value of our PMO using portfolio management processes so that leadership understands the value that our PMO is bringing. Otherwise, if we're only focused on traditional project metrics like are we on time, on budget, on scope, the PMO is going to turn into an order taker, and that's the challenge number 3. If the PMO gets off to the wrong start and it's simply a delivery arm for the organization, it will be perceived as an order taker. And what we mean by this is that the PMO will simply be asked, take on one more project, get this one more thing done, as opposed to being a true strategic partner, which again emphasizes the need for project portfolio management. Because by adding that strategic element to the project management office, the PMO now has portfolio visibility, can speak the language of value, speak this language back to the business, and is no longer a mere order taker, it's also a strategic partner. Unfortunately, a number of PMOs may become project police. They take a different path. Rather than focusing on value, they end up focusing on enforcing rules. Are you using the right template? Did you get your status report done in the right format? Even, did you use the right color of your font on that status report? It's really in the minutia. And this happens far too often, that there's an emphasis on enforcing rules and processes rather than helping project teams be more successful with delivery and demonstrating the value at the portfolio level. Even worse than order taker is becoming project police. And this can be particularly the case for the PMOs that emphasize, or maybe they overemphasize, process and standardization. Now, I'm a fan of standardization at the process and tooling level, but if it's taken too far, then the PMO can have the perception of being just a police officer for a number of rules. And this is commonly precedes the PMO being disbanded. So be careful, don't fall into the position of being the project police. Yes, standardize, yes, hold people accountable, but don't look at it or become the project police. And then another challenge is the actual project manager communication. And again, we've been talking about value. Project managers need to up their game in how they communicate back to senior leaders. Many senior leaders do not have a background in project management. Therefore, project managers need to learn to speak the language that their stakeholders and senior leaders and sponsors are familiar with, which is business-related value delivery. Focus on the value of the project rather than merely communicating what the project has done. This is a fundamental shift for project managers to learn to communicate not merely what they're doing. It's easy to do that. It's easy to put on your status report the 5 things that your team did this week. Yes, it looks like you got a lot done, but are you delivering value? Are you still on track to delivering value? That's really what particularly the executive sponsors are focused on. So project managers within a PMO need to learn how to better communicate. So now we're going to talk about EPMO'S, which refer to enterprise PMOs. And as you guessed it, and as you can see, there are 3 fundamental types of EPMOs. You can have a enterprise project management office, an enterprise program management office, and an enterprise portfolio management office. Of these, the enterprise project management office is going to be the most common. The least common and actually fairly uncommon is an enterprise program management office, but you could have an enterprise portfolio management office, and we'll break down the distinctions shortly. Now, the structure of an EPMO in relation to a PMO is also very important, because at some organizations, they only have an EPMO. The projects affect the entire company. In other cases, you may have departmental PMOs. You might have an IT PMO, very common. Maybe there's an operations PMO, or the marketing department has their own PMO. Different types of projects are being managed, and at the same time, there's some enterprise layer. And at that enterprise layer, it could be project focused, possibly program focused, and often includes some element of portfolio management, or should include PPM at that enterprise level. So the common types of a PMO, we'll elaborate here. The first one is where you have full project management responsibility. This means that you've got one team of project managers that supports project management across the entire company. This type of PMO might be more common for a smaller or mid-sized company where they cannot justify a departmental PMO. Rather, they have one team of project managers that supports the entire company. You could have a strategic related EPMO where this EPMO only gets involved for the most critical projects and or the projects that touch the entire enterprise or the entire company. So rather than managing something that only hits the IT department or only hits the operations or marketing department, this PMO might implement a system that's going to touch the entire enterprise. So the difference here is, rather than full responsibility for all projects, this version of the EPMO only handles a subset of the projects, but the ones that are the biggest, the most critical, and tend to be enterprise-wide. The third type of EPMO would be the Center of Excellence. So very likely a project management center of excellence, but at the enterprise level. So very similar to what we talked about earlier. This version of the EPMO provides the standards, tools, processes, guidance, training, consulting, support, coaching, etc., for the entire company. And this is going to be common when project management is very important to that company and the company is quite large. That's where this type of center of excellence can be very helpful in providing assistance to across the company of how to manage projects. This version of the EPMO is not going to directly deliver projects and programs, so they are supporting probably departmental PMOs, or they might even just be supporting project managers within a department. There may not be a departmental PMO, but they are providing the support with the tools, the standards, processes, coaching, consulting, etc., to help any of the project managers in the company be more successful. So these are the three most common types of an EPMO. Now, of course, you can layer in portfolio management, and highly recommend that you do. But in terms of at the project level, these are the three most common types. Just to elaborate a little bit further on the portfolio management side, we would almost always encourage any project delivery team, whether at the departmental level or an enterprise level, to incorporate portfolio management. And if you have full PM responsibility, as shown on the left, highly recommend incorporating portfolio management into that. Now, there may be cases where there's a separate enterprise portfolio management office that sits alongside and works together with the enterprise project management office. That is another arrangement. You could also have an enterprise portfolio management office that handles the intake and the prioritization of all of those critical strategic projects. So there are definitely different combinations between project and portfolio management at both the enterprise level and at the departmental level. So let's also look at some of the benefits of an EPMO. And just like we talked about with a departmental PMO, really we're focused at stronger delivery at the enterprise level. We may have some of our best project and program managers, our senior folks, at that EPMO level, and they're responsible for delivering the really big, really challenging, critical strategic work that impacts the enterprise. We also get enterprise visibility. This gives senior leadership visibility into all the critical projects happening across the company, or at least at that strategic layer. We definitely get focused strategic execution, especially when the EPMO is certainly handling those critical strategic projects. In this way, it is much easier, and I didn't say it's easy, but it is easier for the executive leadership team to execute strategy by utilizing an EPMO that is involved with the delivery of those strategic projects. Otherwise, it's harder to direct the right projects at the right time to fulfill the enterprise strategy. So larger organizations that pay attention to strategic delivery should have an EPMO that can support and directly influence and coordinate and deliver those projects that affect strategy and the strategic goals. We can standardize project management, number 4, much easier with an EPMO. There's support from a leadership level to distribute key materials, training, support for process, support for tooling at the enterprise level. So we can have better standardization by having an enterprise view of project, program, and portfolio management. And then finally, we could say that the EPMO supports optimal portfolio management for the same reason that we're focused on strategic execution. We're looking at the most critical projects. There's an opportunity to ensure that we've got the right strategic roadmap in place. We're taking in the right projects at the right time through our intake process. We've prioritized the work, and we're doing resource management and capacity planning against those critical strategic projects. By having an EPMO, it facilitates the data collection and the communication across the enterprise. Okay, so these are the benefits. We're about to wrap up. These are the challenges with an EPMO. And as you can imagine, governance can be very challenging because you're going to have different levels of decision making throughout the company, laddering up to an EPMO. So when there is an EPMO and departmental PMOs, more attention needs to be paid to the processes, the communication between the PMO and EPMO, and make it very clear and delineate the responsibility for decision making at the departmental or business unit level versus the enterprise level. Standardizing processes also can be very tricky. Again, you may have different types of projects being managed. IT may have an emphasis on agile delivery. Marketing, they're going to have their projects very often have shorter cycle times. Operations could have a wide variety of different types of projects. So standardizing project management and those processes across the enterprise can be difficult depending on the different departments that are managing projects. In relation to that, then we have the challenge of clean and consistent data. So part of the benefit of the EPMO is that we can collect the right information at the enterprise level, communicate it back to executive leadership. However, getting consistent data due to different processes and systems can be very difficult, which is why when setting up an EPMO, be certain to carefully coordinate those processes and those standards with the various departmental PMOs and the project managers within the company. And then finally, having disparate systems can be quite challenging. This can come about when departmental PMOs start first, and then later there's a recognition of the need for an enterprise project or portfolio management office. Perhaps the different PMOs, they've got their own tools. They might have different tooling. These tools may or may not talk to one another. And the data that's being collected could be greatly different. Therefore, when collecting this information, trying to aggregate it and make sense of it at the enterprise level, it can be very challenging. So the bottom line is, when setting up an EPMO, be sure to pay attention to the processes and the data and the systems and the people managing both the EPMO and the PMO so that there's good coordination at a process level, ideally good coordination at the data level, so that the right information can be conveyed back to leadership to make the right decisions at the right time. Thank you for watching. Hit the like button and leave a comment below. Do you have a PMO or an EPMO, and what type? Did any of the challenges resonate with you, or do you have a question? Leave a comment below and we promise to answer. Thank you and have a great day.